Welcome back, everyone. We are at 11 almost, and we will reconvene our session. We'll start with Aaron Evans, QA architect, OneShore, with his speech, testing strategy and tactics. Please welcome Aaron Evans.
Hi, I'm Aaron, and I'm a test architect and QA strategy consultant, and I'm excited to be here with y'all today. I had a bit of an adventure getting here. I live in Montana, but it was just normal, annoying travel stuff, nothing exciting. But ask me if you want to hear about it later. But I have friends in Austin, so I was excited to come here and be at the Test Automation Summit. So good so far. Um, Surprisingly, my talk has nothing to do with AI. So be disappointed for a little while. Other talks I'm sure will be good. But I want to talk about QA strategy and tactics, right? And I'm hoping you'll play along with me as I talk about the different principles, and we'll make decisions for a fictitious company about how we can develop a QA strategy and apply the tactics and see how it goes. I got a bunch of pencils that say QA strategy on them, but you've all got those nice pens and notebooks. But if you want one, you can come and get one. Anyway, so let's go ahead and put on our consulting caps and get started talking about QA strategy and tactics. Oops, I forgot. Bug of the day. Anyone notice any bugs on the Testing Mind site? This morning I saw, because I'm vain, a display issue here. As you can see, this should be down here. So that's the bug of the day. And I've got a friend, he lives here in Austin, and he's one of the reasons I wanted to come down here. His name's Kevin Rotowski. Anyone know him? He's always posting a bug of the day or whatever, things he finds throughout his normal life. So he's a true tester. Anyway, each of my slides, or most of them, are going to have a quote from some military philosopher or general throughout history, like Sun Tzu here from The Art of War, a classic Chinese text. And I realize there's real wars and conflicts going on now, and I don't want to be insensitive or sound bellicose, but I think we can adapt and learn any of these philosophies that were military to testing, to business, life, sports, whatever. All right, so let's get started talking about, I hope we'll be interactive here. I don't want to do questions at the end. I want to do them in the middle. So what's the difference between strategy and tactics? Anyone have thoughts on that? Just raise your hand or shout it out. No, you can. Tough crowd. Yeah.
Strategy is your method for testing, tactics would be how you're going to do the testing.
That's pretty good. I like to break it down. Strategy is deciding what the overarching goal that you want to achieve, what you should do, and tactics are how you go about accomplishing those goals. Does that sound like a good differentiator? All right. Anyone have anything else? No? All right. So it's said that tactics win battles, but strategy wins wars. And so the strategy is what battle are you going to fight, and the tactics are how you're going to fight that battle. So we're going to apply that to testing. And let's start by talking about what are some different strategies and or tactics that we use in quality assurance or testing. Go ahead and shout it out. Manual testing, yeah. What's that? What based testing? Risk-based testing. Thank you. Sorry, I couldn't hear you very well. Anything else? Huh? Performance testing. Yeah, I've got that one on my list. Anything else? There's lots, right? And how do we categorize these as a strategy or a tactic, right? Is performance testing, would you say that's a strategy or a tactic? Tactic? I mean, it could be either, right? If you're focused on your goal is performance testing, your strategy is we want our app to perform well. But the tactic might be I'm using a performance testing tool. I'm using JMeter or Locust or what is it, K6? Anyone use any of those tools? Right, and so we're going to talk about these different ways of testing, different ways they can apply, and the tools or tactics for using them. Any chess fans here? The game of chess? Yeah? What's your rating? All right. So in chess, we talk about tactical play versus positional play, right? And positional chess, you're worried about your position on the board. Can you control the center? Can you protect your pieces? You're looking for things like that. You're planning for an end game that you know you're going to win. You might have memorized certain strategies or things like the London or the Sicilian defense or whatever. They're usually named after people or the places that the people were from or whatever. Whereas tactical chess is all about, I need to look at my notes here, forcing your opponent to make moves, controlling the board, and putting them on the defensive, creating opportunities when they make mistakes, and calculating, if I sacrifice my rook, can I promote a pawn before he gets to me? That sort of thing. So tactical chess is really more of a offensive style, whereas positional is more defensive. And when it comes down to it, strategy at its most basic, broadest level is whether you're going on the offensive or you're going on the defensive, right? So when we think about testing, what is the difference between offensive and defensive for software testing? Any thoughts? Yeah. Positive and negative tests. So a positive test meaning it works, and a negative test, I found a bug, right? Or a limitation. Okay, it can't do this, right? Okay. Any other thoughts in the back? All right, yeah, so early stage, shift left, testing during design or testing after the fact, maybe called waterfall style. You got a comment over here?
I think it's more like four flows, kind of easier flows, just choosing just one simple, very simple suite of tests.
Okay.
We can do this by now.
Okay, yeah, so having a code flow test versus, right, focus versus wide, right? Yeah, those are all good. And I like to think in terms of just one more example of testing requirements, functional testing, versus exploratory testing, which gets more towards yours, right? So exploratory testing, you're trying to see what it can do. You're trying to find bugs. You're trying to test the limitations. Functional testing, you're trying to make sure it does what's expected. And so that's another way to look at it. So the takeaway here is we need to have a strategy, and we need to be conscious of that strategy. It's okay to say functional testing is the most important thing, but we should be aware we're trading off time that might be spent doing exploratory testing or performance and load testing, things like that. All right, now let's talk about some tactics, right? In order to apply tactics, whether it's a cavalry charge or digging in fortifications, I think, Alexander the Great, his main tactic was an open charge by his companions, his heavily armored knights, to break the enemy's defensive line. Caesar and the Romans, they had a very defensive tactic of building a fortification every night, but they also had the ability with the maniples and the flexible legions to adapt to change. And we'll get more into those things later. But your capabilities and your limitations determine your constraints, right? And I have three categories. It doesn't have to be these three, but this is how I broke it down into people, tools, and process, right? So let's think about constraints of people. For example, you might have too few people, or a limited number of people where you would prefer to have more. These your testers might have lack of training, either with a certain tool or a technique or whatever. For tools, you might not have a budget for commercial tools, or again, your people might not be experienced in a programming framework. We're using Cypress, but nobody is comfortable with JavaScript, for example, especially with promises and those sorts of things. And process, well, do you have a defined process? Is it rigid? Does everyone understand that process? Anyone else have any feedback on these three general categories or a different category of things that affect your strategy and tactics? Funding? Yeah. That could affect how long we have to test, whether we can afford tools, whether we can hire, things like that. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Leadership or cultural. Let's delve into that. Okay, within the company, yeah. Do you have a specific example, or would you prefer to remain anonymous about those things? Right, it could be good. Like I really liked Vidya, where she said, and I messaged her about this. I loved her comment. I've got it written down because it was so good. The key to good leadership is accountability, or something like that. Or trust. Yes, thank you. The key to good leadership, trust is the key to good leadership, but you need accountable leadership, and so that trust needs governance, right? I loved that. So having leadership that you trust and being trusted by leadership is important. And we'll get into that when we talk about accountability a little later. Right? Not only are there limitations on these capabilities, there might be advantage or special capabilities. You might have someone who's particularly good at finding bugs or very knowledgeable about technical things, setting up test environments, Linux, AWS, or whatever is needed. So you can use those capabilities as well as those limitations, and being aware of your capabilities and limitations are important. All right, I can see I'm already running way behind. So let's jump ahead. And then when I break it down, besides those three different capabilities, we have, I have 5 processes. And again, this is an arbitrary grouping. But number 1, we have requirements and methodology. So obviously this is not meant to necessarily be sequential, but often it is sequential, or it might be in a type loop. You need to know what you're testing. You need to know what the system should do. You need to know how you're going to test it. The next thing, you're creating tests, right? Whether you're writing manual test cases down in something like Zephyr or TestRail, or whether you're automating test cases, that's a step. Now, if you're doing session-based testing, you may combine the test creation and the test execution in the same spot, but often we execute tests after. And if we've written good tests, if we have a great automation suite, that's fine, but it doesn't really provide us any value until we execute those tests. So we need to execute those tests against an environment, against a system under test. And again, we can execute those tests all we want, but unless we get meaningful and trustworthy results and we're able to report those results to the stakeholders, no value is being provided, or less value is being provided. And finally, unless they're doing something right, unless the people who care about the system and about those test results are able to understand and do some analysis and get that feedback from your tests and be able to refine their requirements, for example, or modify the methodology of testing. So it's kind of a cycle of things that you need to do. And that's how I want to break things down. Think I missed anything? Maybe, but that's a good set of categories, I think. What's that? Yeah, success metrics. That's a good point. I guess that would fall under, or maybe a mix between the reporting and the analytics, right? The metrics, how many tests are passing, how many are failing, how much time you're spending on maintenance, how many escapes are happening, things that are missed by testing, right? All those types of metrics are important, and that's where you do the analysis to determine that. Is that okay? Does that fit in there?
Yeah, and what about the ROI?
Oh, the ROI, so return on investment? Yeah. That's a good additional thing. Again, I could weasel that into analytics, but or feedback. So we've got our strategies and tactics, and we haven't really defined anything yet, but it's important to know what your goals are and your objectives first, right? As it says here, unless you know what you intend to achieve and how you intend to do it, it's not going to be good. So I want to introduce my fictitious company now, right? we could talk about challenges we face in the real world, but in order to protect the innocent and save ourselves from the wrath of the guilty, perhaps, let's just use this fictitious company and project our problems and challenges onto them. And I'm going to introduce the company, and we can bend the rules a bit. You can help modify what's going on. But I want to call my company Explore Corp. And we can project our issues onto them, like I said. Now, Explore Corp is building a mobile app, and they need our help testing it. So we need to ask some questions and figure out what their goals are, right? How many of you have tested mobile apps before? Fair amount, yeah? Well, this one is different. Have you ever heard someone say, oh, this time it's different, right? Everything's always different, but there's always a lot of similarities between them, right? So we go into this blind. What sort of questions do we need to ask as a QA consultant to help Explore Corp? I should have chose less of a tongue twister for a company name. What should we ask them to understand what their needs are and be able to set goals? Any thoughts? Yeah, okay. What's the app doing? What? What's the purpose of the app? Yeah. So how many of you guys have seen the Simon Sinek talk about the golden circle? Anyone not seen it? All right, so a few of you have not seen it. I've got the ability.
I call those what they do, 100%.
Ooh, I need to start the.
It's always a result. By
All right, I've got a backup here.
I call.
Oh no. Why isn't it playing? So he says, I call it the golden circle.
The terms really how they. But very blessed. Let me give you an example. Understand and everybody.
We just tested this.
Apple is done. Actually communicate. I call it value proposition or your proprietary process.
Okay. Sorry,
I call.
this may not work.
Know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process.
I think this.
I call it the golden circle.
Okay. Can you hear this?
Why, how, what? Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do, 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You're ready to buy a computer from me. Well,
All right, so that's the golden circle, right? And that's what I've got here. I need to switch back to my slide view again now. Is that working? Okay. Right, so often we start at what, right? What do we do? So let's talk about that with Explore Corp. All right. So Explore Corp, what they do is they do oil and gas exploration. They run around looking for oil, doing tests, using those big thumper trucks to do seismographic mapping of the earth and predicting whether or not the oil is going to exist. They're building a mobile app that's going to be on a ruggedized tablet so that their field crews can use it. And any further questions? What does the app do, right? It does a couple of things. Number one, it handles equipment and fleet management. So I need to be able to understand the equipment I have, know what maintenance there is, order replacements, handle broken equipment, and show accountability for who's got that thumper truck, that seismographic something or other. So they also need to do mapping. They need to get GIS information and put the layers on that map to show that as well. And what's important is the quality of the data, right? Explore Corp lives and dies by whether their mapping data is accurate, whether their predictions as to whether an oil well will be profitable is correct or not, right? That's their value add. That's their why. Why do you want to use Explore Corp? Because we will give you a greater return on your oil and gas drilling. And we talked about the how through what they're doing. But we need to make sure that it's secure as well, that the right people are able to access the devices, the wrong people aren't. That when you plug in a USB from some IoT sensor down in a well or whatever, or from that seismographic data, that we're not going to upload invalid or dangerous data to that. As well as we don't want someone unauthorized to be able to check out trucks and equipment and then sell it on eBay or something. So those are our requirements. This is what they need. And they need to interface with this legacy ERP system. They've got JD Edwards that handles their people. They've got machine learning models, but they're all written in Fortran and run on a mainframe. How are we going to handle this?
I call it the golden circle.
Yeah, we heard that already. All right, so that's a big project. How are we going to break it down? We need to talk about our assets and liabilities. You all know Donald Rumsfeld, right? Whatever you like or whatever you think about the guy, he's got a couple of good quotes. One is, you go to war with the army you have, not the army you might want to have. So we're testing with the resources we have, not what we might want to have in the future. So we're going to break this down, right? Time, money. Someone mentioned resources, the people, you said the leadership and the culture. Yeah. Organizational constraints like that. So let's take a minute and think about that. Again, this is from Donald Rumsfeld. We've got our known knowns. They might say, okay, we use BDD, and we've got a big team of testers. We've got a mainframe we've got to interface with, but we've also got this web app that needs to run on a rugged tablet. How are we going to bring those together? Well, now we have our known unknowns. We don't know how we're going to interface with that mainframe. Anyone here have experience testing with mainframe systems? Yeah? What are the challenges? I've never worked directly with a mainframe. What are the challenges you face? Emulator? Like a terminal emulator? Or what? Okay.
Well, one, not go up the language.
Okay.
Depending on which banking system you're using, depends on how it's structured, and then how that data gets pushed back into, let's say, the web app,
All right.
which are completely different languages, and then converting the databases, which are maybe
All right.
to
So I like what you said. It depends on what systems, right? Those are our known unknowns, right? We don't know what this back-end system does, but we know we don't know. We're a step ahead of this last yellow circle, the unknown unknowns, right? Which is what's going to come up. Now, as not being a mainframe tester, I don't know a lot about that. Here's something I did, and I used AI. I asked ChatGPT about those systems and gained a little bit of insight. So this is how we can use AI for exploring information, but we need to double check it because it does like to hallucinate. And then our last category is our unknown unknowns. Now, coming in new as a consultancy for Explore Corp, there are going to be a lot of unknown unknowns. How can we shape these things and develop a strategy based on what we know and don't know? Anyone have thoughts? It's a big challenge, right? The Man in Black is going to help you here, right? Any Princess Bride fans? Anyone not seen The Princess Bride? We're going to watch another clip and break it down. Hopefully this will work a little better.
How long do we have to wait before we know the miracle?
You hear that?
Your guess is as good as mine.
I'll beat you apart. I'll take you both together.
I guess not very long.
Why won't my arms move?
You've been mostly dead all day.
We had Miracle Max make a pill to bring you back. Who are you? Are we enemies? Why am I on this wall?
All right, so first thing he's doing, he's been mostly dead, so he's coming into this blind, right? He wants to orient himself. Who are you? Why am I here? Stuff like that.
Where's Buttercup? Let me explain.
That's, what's that? Oh, it's not showing it again? Oh, we got to start over. All right. Now, can you see the video? All right.
Why won't my arms move?
You've been mostly dead all day.
We had
Right, so that's the immediate problem. I forgot to mention. Why won't my arms move?
Miracle Max make a pill to bring you back. Who are you? Are we enemies? Why am I on this wall? Where's Buttercup?
Now, to the Man in Black, where's Buttercup is the key question. It's his true love, Princess Buttercup, hence the princess in The Princess Bride. For those who are unaware, your assignment is to watch this movie. One of the best.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
All right, let me explain. No, there's too much. Let me sum up. You don't have time to learn all the information. You probably can't express all the information. You can feed everything you got into your AI model, and maybe it can help you sum it up. But we need to understand the high level, and so that's what we're going to do.
Buttercup is marrying Humperdinck in a little less than half an hour. So all we have.
Criticality of time, right? The constraint here, Buttercup is marrying Humperdinck and the evil Prince Humperdinck in a little less than an hour.
Buttercup is marrying Humperdinck in a little less than half an hour. So all we have to do is get in, break up the wedding, steal the princess, make our escape.
All we have to do, get in, break up the wedding, save the princess, make our escape. We've identified our key goals here, right?
I kill Count Rogan.
Side mission, he's got to kill Count Rogan, the six-fingered man who killed his father.
Doesn't leave much time for dilly-dally.
Not much time, right? Lots of constraints.
You just wiggle your finger. That's wonderful.
I've always been a
Got to have a
good
positive
dealer. What are our
attitude.
liabilities?
There is but one.
What are our liabilities? Now he wants to identify. What are our liabilities? Okay. I should let you watch this all the way through.
What are our liabilities?
There is but one working Castle Gate. Come on. And it is guarded by 60 men.
And our assets?
Your brains. Fez's strength. I steal.
That's
All right. And so we've got our assets and our liabilities. Your brains, Fezzik's strength, Fezzik's the giant, and my skill.
impossible.
That's it.
If I had a
Little
month to plan,
pessimistic.
maybe I could come up with something like this.
Anyone ever felt like that? If I had a month to plan, maybe we could come up with a good testing strategy.
You shook your head. That doesn't make you happy?
You can do it, says Fezzik, the manager.
My brains, his steel, and your strength against 60 men, and you think a little head jiggle is supposed to make me happy?
Maybe set more realistic expectations.
I mean, if we only had a wheelbarrow, that would be something.
Where do we put the wheelbarrow of the albino head?
Over there. Albino, I
Over
think.
by the albino. So, you might overlook something that might not seem like an asset. It might be someone who has some domain knowledge that you're not aware of as a manager, right? Maybe someone knows COBOL or has worked with ruggedized tablets or knows a little bit about the oil and gas industry. So find out what those other hidden assets are.
Why didn't you list that among our assets in the first place?
You can't always know though.
What I wouldn't give for a Holocaust cloak.
There we cannot help you. But this
So obviously a wheelbarrow and a Holocaust cloak are going to help, at least a big black cloak of some sort. So also, don't be afraid to ask for things that you don't have that might make it easier. You know, it would really help us if we had a test management solution that could track our coverage and our gaps, like they were talking about with Tosca. So you might not get it, but if you don't ask, then you might not be able to affect a meaningful plan.
How did you get that? At Medical Max?
I'd love to watch more of this, but I've already wasted too much time. So let's hop back over here. And, yep, okay. So let's just review what we've got here, right? First thing, we want to orient ourselves to the situation. And then we want to focus on the key problem, right? Rescue Buttercup. We want to review the situation, not get too bogged down in the details, prioritize those key tasks. We want to describe what our solution is going to be, and so that's our goal. What does success look like? And then we need to determine what our assets and liabilities are. Those help us determine what tactics we can use, which then feed back into what's our strategy going to be. If I had a month to plan, then we need to develop a plan based on those constraints. All right. So now I've got a few quotes to go through. I don't have. I think I've got a few more diagrams, Venn charts, and quadrants. But I just want to talk about planning. Planning is important, as General Eisenhower says, but plans are useless, right? As another great military strategist or tactician, probably, Mike Tyson said, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right? But that doesn't mean you shouldn't plan. Mike Tyson has a plan, but he's willing to adapt. Planning is indispensable, though. All right, so this is Eisenhower's urgency versus important matrix. Anyone seen this before? Yeah, all right. So the idea is that there are two categories of issues that come up. Some of them are important and urgent, right? Those are critical. Those are the most important ones we should deal with now. Some of those are important, but they're not urgent. We can schedule those for later. Some of those are urgent, but not important. That's an interruption, right? Oh, the test environment's down. Oh, we've got a production bug. They might not be important right now, but they're urgent right now. Those are things that we can be delegated. Can SRE look at the test environment? Right, so you want to delegate those tasks. And some things are neither urgent nor important. You can throw those away, deal with them later when you don't have any other problems. So this is the matrix. It's a good feedback cycle for dealing with issues and interruptions. All right, risk and opportunity, right? There are risks. Someone mentioned risk-based testing strategy. We need to know what our risks are. We need to identify those. That feeds back into the knowns and unknowns, though, right? And we need to be able to handle opportunities when they come, to seize the day, to take advantage of good things that come up. Like, hey, if we've got a wheelbarrow, if only we've got a cloak. But anyway, being aware of the risks and opportunities helps you. Again, we've got another matrix here. I'm always jealous of people who have nice, clean, beautiful slides, but I have fun making mine, and I don't know. Anyway, so again, we have probability versus impact. Something that is high probability and high impact is our most important, right? Something that has medium probability and impact, well, it's more important, But something that, for instance, is high probability but low impact, say a typo. Pretty good chance you're going to get a typo on your app, right? Is the impact great? Maybe the person who is a spelling fanatic thinks so, or maybe your CEO thinks, oh, the company name is misspelled, but the app still works great. Can we ship it? Anyway, or something where the impact is high, but the probability is low, right? We don't want to spend too much time planning for an asteroid collision. If it happens, I guess, then the probability was higher than we thought. But the idea is that something high impact, now this could be higher probability, but someone breaking into our back-end systems and stealing all our user data. That's a really high impact, but it should be a low probability if security is doing its job and we're isolating and securing those systems. So that's the risk-based matrix that I like to use for deciding. Analysis and decision-making, right? Things change. I'll switch back to my presenter view so that I can read my notes. Great, my computer's melting. All right. Oh, I don't even have notes on here. It just says change is constant. Heraclitus talks about here, no man ever steps in the same river twice. It's not the same river, and he's not the same man. 5 minutes? All right. The point here is that you can't use the same test plan for everything. As I joked, this time it's different. Well, there's a lot of similarities every time the testing. A lot of principles can be applied over and over, but there's something different about every project, and we need to be aware of that. And so we need a feedback loop, right? And you guys have probably all heard the red-green refactor, right? Write a failing test, write some code, deploy a change, and make sure the tests pass. And then you can refactor the code. Oh, my battery's dying too. Good thing you've got a plug here for me. All right, so this feedback loop is important, but we need to make sure that that feedback loop is trustworthy. Trust is key to leadership. Trust is key to tests. If people don't trust QA, they start to ignore it or dismiss it. How many of you have seen a build or a test run where you know there's a certain amount of flaky tests, right? There's 10% or 20% or 50%. I've seen that failing tests. But hey, as long as we're approximately 70% passing and we get the same number on rerun, we'll let it slide. Not a good strategy because two things. Number one, we may have false positives in there, or we may have hidden failures in there, right? They're going to creep in and look like other tests. In my first job as a tester, I worked at Microsoft, and one of my jobs was to analyze all the logs, and this was 25 years ago. Analyze all the logs and see, we had at one point a log of 75 plus open issues. And so I would look at the logs and say, yeah, this stack trace looks the same. It happened in the same place. It must be the same bug. Not always the case. And we would see that list of issues creep up, and the trust in those test results go down as that happens. So there's that. And then the other issue is you get lost, the signal gets lost in the noise, and you don't know if, right? I guess that's the source of the lack of trust. You don't know whether you can trust your tests. A couple other things that aren't directly related to your strategy is leadership and morale, right? The morale of the team is important. Morale wins wars. And I love this quote here that Harry Truman said, it's amazing what you can accomplish if you don't care who gets the credit. And that's the mark of a good leadership. When people can trust their leader to have their back, when the leaders can trust the team to give them the bad news. Has anyone ever felt pressured to say, okay, we can go ahead and let it slide? Maybe it's just when the test runs on for me and in continuous integration and in the test environment, right? So we've got to have both ways, trust and morale, right? Who has had a leader or a developer or someone take credit for an issue they found? Me, yeah, you. It happens, and that's morale crushing, especially for those of us who live to break things. And I think a lot of us have that proclivity that we got into QA because we like to find problems or when we like to report them. Since we're running out of time, I'll just breeze through these last few. Initiative and accountability here. If we are able to take initiative, we find that we're able to do more things, and that affects our morale as well. But in order to be able to be given that freedom to make that initiative, we have to have accountability. We also have to have the trust and the ability to make mistakes, right? Our leaders need to trust us to make mistakes. And I've been in situations. Recently, I had a situation where I was setting up cloud testing using Lambda test, and we were using a dedicated proxy, which is a fancy specialized system, and some of our internal networks were not accessible, and those tests were failing forever, and I dismissed it. It sat for months, and it sat for 2 years, and after a while, I said, well, does it work? And I said, no. Well, we just made the changes, and then it sat for months after I said it, and it was a configuration change in my test automation framework, or a bug. Oh, it looks like I'm out of time. I'm going to slide methodology loss, tools, blah, 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 blah. I've got way too much. I want to just mention this last slide, that communication and collaboration can do things, right? What's the fastest test? The one you don't have to run. And sometimes just communication can enable that if you get the right people in the right place. For instance, developers may be testing something that doesn't need an end-to-end test. Anyway, thanks for your time. I'd love to connect with you. You can hit my LinkedIn or email me, and appreciate your time.
We can take a few questions. We can take a few questions here for 4 minutes.
Oh, then I could have ran through those other slides. Okay, go ahead.
Anyone?
No? Okay.
Thank you very much, Aaron. And I really loved your presentation, even if it didn't have references to AI. Shrimp Malai curry, and Malai is spelled as M-A-L-A-I, and I just wrote it's AI enabled, and I won the first prize. So, and it's true. Not sure whether because of AI or not, but I won. So with that, I think we can proceed towards our next speaker. He is